When one is confused, they feel suffocating. And 2020 is such a symbolic year for that confusion.
About, the haves are so worried about losing that. And then the have-nots are just so angry because they can't have.
There's so much from our ancestral wounding that really needs to be healed.
I think we can learn from nature. It starts with the atoms, the molecules. It might look like it's chaotic, but there is a structure.
This is how we can initiate intention to create form from formlessness.
Love is the most important place we need to be in. When we try to achieve balance and within chaos.
Everything going on, we are part of a much larger shift. It's coming to the surface. It's an opportunity for us to heal and shift our consciousness.
We either choose to listen to, choose to be guided by, choose to be our guiding light and our torch through the darkness or through the chaos, or decide that we're gonna jump on the bandwagon of negativity and fear and uncertainty and some of the anxiety and emotions that can bring to our system.
That's a really good question. From my perspective, we can only really have freedom when we have detached ourselves from everything that is not important. The haves, have-nots. We build a society where there's those who have and there's those who have not. And people are so worried about, the haves are so worried about losing that. And then the have-nots are just so angry because they can't have. We attach ourselves to labels, we attach ourselves to race, and again, I don't think that's necessary. We're all human beings. And the less we attach ourselves to anything and just kind of let go, we'll just get our own sense of freedom and our own sense of what is important. And I think that would actually help other people do the same thing. I understand why people are angry and they're rioting. I don't believe that that's the right way to go about doing it, but I understand it. And I understand the anger and the sadness and the hopelessness and all sorts of things. So there has to be a way. Sorry.
That's a really big couple of questions. I worked for Master Xuemei and his wife, and he's a grand master of Qigong and just a very loving spiritual teacher for me. And his wife had told me a few months ago, she said, you know what the character is in Chinese, the actual character for unconditional love is no heart. It is loving other beings just because they have the divinity within them. They have this light within them. Watching all the events of riots and destruction and the anger. And it is because there's so much generational wounding. There's so much from our ancestral wounding that really needs to be healed by healing in the present moment, by healing ourselves. We can clear some of that ancestral wounding just through our thoughts and our words. And the Buddhist prayer of forgiveness, right? If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusions, I forgive them. And if there is a situation, this is an important one, I think. If there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that, for all the ways that I have harmed myself, judged or be unkind to myself through my own confusions. I forgive myself for that. And to me, that's the start of healing karmic debt.
I think it's a tough statement that we create freedom without chaos. I think this doesn't exist. because everything is chaos when we see it from a small perspective. And we need chaos in the small units in order to create structure from a bigger perspective. So if we have in the small, tiny pieces, we can see what we perceive as chaos. In the overall picture, we can create structure. And this is what we all need, what we all want. I think this is the basis of all living and all being, that we have a structure from a bigger scale. And this is what I think we can learn from nature. It starts with the atoms, the molecules. It might look like it's chaotic, but there is a structure and everything is built on a structured system. And the second part of the question, how can we have harmony without control? I also think this doesn't exist. I think it needs balance. We need control in order to have harmony. What I think we don't need is control from the outside. If each and every one of us accepts the responsibility to accept and follow certain rules, we have that harmony we are all longing for, if it comes from ourselves, from the inside. And I think it is extremely important to have some rules, to accept some rules. For instance, don't do harm, neither to ourselves nor to other ones. And if we, from the inside, accept those very important rules, these are still rules, but we don't need the control from the outside. And then we are able to create balance. And balance is that healthy state of being. And it includes all levels of our being: health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. I think the thing we are longing for and what we want to create is balance. And how can we create that? The overarching theme is unconditional love. I think love is the rule we all should follow. And I learned this in my third near-death experience. And I think most people here on earth know that saying everything comes with a price. This was not exactly the message I was given, but it was with huge knowledge, with huge wisdom comes huge responsibility. And when we accept our responsibility, we create that balance in love for each and everyone. So what is justice, and who decides what justice is, and who thinks has the power and the right to apply that? To me, there's only one, that's God, that's source, the universe, this power. And we would live justice if we would all accept our responsibility to live in love. And we would not need to search for justice because it would be here. And what's the system? What do we consider justice? And I think it is part, not that I like it, don't get me wrong, not at all. I know there are things we really hate and it should not happen. But I think we need injustice in order to know how important fairness is. If you mentioned we are living in a dual world, if we would not know how hectic and beautiful a day with sunlight is, we would not be able to appreciate the calmness during the night, and vice versa. If we would not know what illness means, we would not appreciate health. So we need to learn this, even though we don't like it. But I think it is part of our human experience to understand both sides in order to create that balance. If we wouldn't know how painful it is to be out of balance, we would not see the importance to create that.
First, I wanted to say how refreshing it was to hear both Pat and Petra speak and share their perspective. I found it very resonant. In other words, I resonate with those messages and feelings that they shared. Your question about chaos reminds me of the philosophy that I learned when I began to study Tai Chi. And that is that when we are standing in the opening posture, that is called emptiness, Wu Ji. So this Wu Ji or emptiness posture reflects the chaos of the universe before it becomes formed. It's formless. It's not harmful. It's just formless. And then we begin to breathe in the energy of the universe, and then we begin to move our bodies. This is how we can initiate intention to create form from formlessness. We can learn a lot of wisdom from those who have walked before us, and we can even use some of their language. With regard to terms like justice or balance, in the Hawaiian culture, we have a word called pono. It means both. It means both balance and justice. And we have a healing system built on those concepts. And we use those concepts with a specific protocol to help resolve issues or conflicts, both within the person or within a group of people like the family, or even larger groups of people that, we've adapted the system, the cultural, traditional system to fit into contemporary systems. I knew what she was thinking because my lifestyle is based on using this emptiness, Wuji, to come up with information. Otherwise, I wouldn't have that information. Today, we call that process intuition. And yes, I've used that word intuition to help describe one of the Hawaiian ways of knowing. I teach a form of Ho'oponopono called Lokahi Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono can be interpreted as to make things right, to put things in balance, to restore justice, okay, restorative justice. But within that framework, we have basic concepts, basic belief systems and values, what I can call the operating system of the practice. And one of the keys is lokahi. Lokahi means unity. It implies that we are not living by ourselves. We are having a relationship with nature. We have a relationship with a higher self or a higher power. And then in the center of this triangle, I put the symbol of a heart. And we translate that symbol to be a word of aloha. As you mentioned earlier in the discussion, unconditional love, unconditional caring.
Love is the most important place we need to be in. When we try to achieve balance and within chaos and, within strong fears like anger and worry and fear, and there's so much of it these days, and I feel the importance of accessing daily to our inner wisdom. They call it intuition probably, but we need to regularly in the meditative state or quieting our mind or, practice those things in order to access our intuition. And I think it's really, really important because that's our inner pilot, and that will lead us to more balance and more love. But oftentimes, people are so busy with many thoughts passing through their mind every day. And unless we are able to act out of love, it is really hard to achieve that. And we often miss things or act impulsively. And I just wanted to share, just like somebody mentioned about Qigong, but I know there are many teachers here who practice Reiki, so they are probably familiar with it. But the 5 principles of Reiki, which I teach to my Reiki students all the time, just wanted to share with you. So the 5 principles are: just for today, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, and fulfill your duties. Be kind to others. And by saying just for today, oftentimes we think about our past, the future too much, and then that leads to worry or fear or anger. So I think in order to quiet our mind, just for today stance, paying attention to now and present moment is really important. That's how I feel, and that's I think why Usui, Mikao Usui, the founder of Reiki practice, incorporated this into Reiki practice. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
That's beautiful. So how do people, when they are, what would you tell them if they're at the peak of their anger? And how do they get access to their intuition?
First thing is breathing.
Oh, hold on. Let me mute to myself and then you can start.
First thing is definitely breathing, because I've helped many people in this COVID outbreak situation. Many people actually ask for me to help them, by guided meditation or other types of meditation. And, most of the meditation I used to help them has a breathing component. So you really pay attention to your breathing and you can quiet your mind that way pretty efficiently most of the time. So, and so your inner wisdom and, your inner pilot, those things will, surface. But if your mind is always busy and there are so many thoughts and so many strong emotions, you cannot really notice what your quiet inner voice is telling you. So I think the best way is to incorporate breathing, even for 5 minutes, just to quiet your mind.
Sometimes we understand spirituality and connecting with our spirit guides to be something very ethereal and not really related to living on the planet now. But this is an opportunity with everything going on. We are part of a much larger shift. When we look back in time, we will see what a huge change it is. Not just the pandemic, but also all these things coming to the surface, the racism in our country and all the injustice that happens. It's coming to the surface. It's an opportunity for us to heal and shift our consciousness. And so on a personal level, we can make a very big change by connecting to our heart energies. Our heart energy aligns us with the larger divine presence. And when we start to recognize that we are all one and the same, part of a larger consciousness, that what happens to one affects all of us, we can start to make that individual contribution.
I wanted to answer Dr. Z's question about what it would take to have a world of freedom. And I really believe that the chaos happens when we aren't actually coming from our high place of divinity that is our birthright, that each and every one of us have within us. From that place of divinity, we understand that we have the freedom to choose how we respond to each and every situation. That some of the energetics that are going on the outside, some of that white noise that we allow to come in those moments when we're engaging in energetics or vibrations or emotions that aren't really in alignment with our highest selves, that's when there's chaos. It's actually when we show up in, that inspired, like, avatar state, if you will, of where our higher being is operating from on a regular basis, that we either choose to listen to, choose to be guided by, choose to be our guiding light and our torch through the darkness or through the chaos, or decide that we're gonna jump on the bandwagon of negativity and fear and uncertainty and some of the anxiety and emotions that can bring to our system. And we know that when we're looking from a holistic perspective, that those are some of the most destructive choices that we can make for ourselves. Those are the things that keep us paralyzed. They're the things that don't allow us to progress forward in a healthy and productive way. They're the things that keep us outside of a state of confidence and empowerment. And I think what it would take is the remembering and commitment to continuing to take a deep breath and respond from the place of that higher breath of divinity that we all have within us. And when we're moving from that place and leading as examples of what that looks like in our world, we're going to see a huge shift.
According to Chinese traditional medicine, each organ is not just a clump of cells. They often including informations and energy, which is called qi. And each organ is associated with different emotions and different mindset. For lung, in addition to an organ of breathing, exchange of air, it is also associated with a clear thinking, openness to new ideas, and good communication. If the clarity is lost, if the mind is closed to new ideas, if the communication is blocked, you will feel suffocating and it will manifest in different lung disease. And the emotion associated with the lung is sadness and grief. And in 2020, we have seen the unprecedented forest fire in Australia, followed by the coronavirus infection of our lung. People die from suffocation. And now we have the police brutality of suffocating people by pressing on them. And we have this movement of I can't breathe. And all of this is symbolic to this period of human experience. And in order to bring freedom and harmony back to our society, we need clarity. We need leadership with visions, clear visions of we need openness to our mind, to the future, to the new paradigm, to the shift. And we need heart-to-heart communication, the flow of energy of love and clarity. And this is so important for this period of human experience. And this is what it takes.